Welcome back to Gap Perspective this week. We are thrilled to be back with you tonight. Tonight, we are taking a closer look at how the job market affects people with disabilities. It is a topic that many overlook, and we are committed to shed some light on the challenges and the community. We are especially excited to have our first guest joining us, who will be sharing his personal experiences navigating this landscape. Kenny, welcome to Gap Perspective. We are delighted to have you. I'm going to turn this over to Haley, who will be conducting this interview, because Kenny, you are too close to my heart. We'll explain that later. So I think that Haley would be better at the interview than myself.
Well,
Haley?
thank you for having me.
Kenny, welcome to Gap Perspective. Janet and I are really honored to have you as our first guest to discuss an important issue that is sometimes not thought about. To kick things off, would you be open to sharing how you became disabled?
Yes, when I was 18 years old, young, dumb, and stupid, I took a ride on a dirt bike drunk, and I crashed, and I ended up with a C5, C6 spinal cord injury, which left me paralyzed from the neck down in 1979.
Wow, okay. What kind of support systems have been most important to you throughout your life and throughout this experience?
Actually, back when I became paralyzed, I was the only 18-year-old kid in my town with a spinal cord injury, living my life from a wheelchair. So my support system was my friends and my family.
That's great. Happy to hear that. Could you share a bit about your journey with employment or career?
My first job, I was paralyzed in 79. I was back to work by 1981. And the job I started was thanks to my father. He delivered industrial gases to the big companies. And the one company was United States Bronze Powders. And they needed a stockroom keeper because there was too much left in the plant. So I accepted it. And unfortunately, it was 12-hour days. And I could only do that for so long. I got paid monthly, $777 a month, which I could barely survive on. My second job was at M&M's Candies in Hackettstown. And so my employment there was I was a candy packer and quality assurance. And that was swing shift. The only way I found these jobs, my second job, was the old telephone that hooked to the wall and the yellow pages. And it was swing shift. I worked the weekends the weekend shift, 12 hours days and 12 hours nights, and 2 days during the week.
Wow, okay.
Just getting a little oxygen right now.
Okay, take your time, Kenny.
That's okay.
So I lasted at M&M's for about 5 years. And then I went to work for the state of New Jersey part-time. And I got that job. My sister, my brother Tom, and my sister-in-law all worked at this Hunterdon Developmental Center. They had a part-time position for me in the engineering department. And that's when I was introduced to the world of computers. And the state put me through school to learn computers. Back then it was MS-DOS.
Mhm.
And then it went to Lotus. And then Microsoft came along. Funny story, my job in the engineering department was to inventory each different department. We had 7 different utility departments. And then another part-time job opened up in the printing department. So I went there and I ended up working half a day in engineering, half a day in the printing department.
Kenny, I don't want to interrupt, but what year was that? Do you remember?
That was 1984.
You were doing all this before the ADA came along, right?
Yes, I was.
Yes, you
There
were.
was no ADA yet.
No, there was not. The act didn't come in until I think they signed the ADA Disability Act. It was enacted in 1990.
Correct.
And you had the hard work to do before the ADA. You really had the hard work to do, it seems. Am I correct?
What way do you mean hard work? By doing the footwork?
Yeah. And it was harder for you though to get a job, I would think.
Yes,
Yes.
it wasn't easy, but I was very motivated and I wanted to work. I wanted to be as independent as I could, which I was.
Yes, you were. For sure.
Let me take a little break. You guys talk
I'll talk a little bit about the ADA Act. And in the 60s, 70s, 80s, there was not much either. They didn't really start till 1992 for buildings to comply with the law.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened then, a job opening came up in the word processing center, and it was a full-time job. So I applied for it, and the manager of the center had me come in for an interview, which I was thrilled that I might be getting a full-time job, being in my position. And that was 1985. And so after, going through the process of the interview, I wasn't a really good typist yet, or keyboarder, as they say now. And after we went through the whole process, she really liked my attitude. She liked my willingness to work. So after we were all done, and she told me that she would be taking me on as a word processing specialist 3. You had a word processor 3, word processor 2, and word processor 1. So after she said that she would give me a chance, she said, "Why do you think," or she asked me, "Why do you think I should hire you?" And I said, "Hire the handicapped, they're fun to watch." And she did laugh. And that was before I knew to use the term handicap.
I was just going to say.
So I had that job from 85 until 1999. In the course of those years, I broke my neck 2 more times. And I still managed to keep the job until 1999 when they phased out word processing because computers had built-in word processors.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to need a little break.
Okay. Okay. I'll do some talking while you take the break. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 was the United States' first major federal disability rights law, and that was passed on September 26, 1973. The law opened doors for many qualified individuals with disabilities to enter for the first time the federal and federal contractor workplace. So I guess that was just the start of the ADA laws, correct? Okay.
Yes.
And I'm reading here, they have hidden disabilities, as you know. Those with invisible disabilities are not faking it. One being heart disease, lung disease, hearing loss, auditory impairments, multiple chemical sensitivities, cancers, asthma, back injuries, but yours is more than an injury, sleep disorders. They are invisible disabilities according to the ADA.
Correct.
Mhm.
And there's also the autism spectrum.
Yes.
They even have alcoholism and mental health.
Mental health.
Yes, that's a big
Mhm.
one.
Yeah, that's recognized under international and local laws. Blindness, low vision, leprosy cured persons, deaf and hard of hearing, locomotor disability, dwarfism, intellectual disability, and mental illness. Yeah.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people out there, a lot of employers out there don't recognize that.
No.
No, I agree too.
Because you can walk into a job interview, be dressed to the nines, and you cannot communicate with the person interviewing you, maybe because you don't know sign language or you don't speak the same language, language barriers. And there's multiple other ones too. I mean, there's a vast majority of people that have a disability that just by looking at them, you would never know.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Are you okay, Ken?
Yeah, I'm just gonna take a little oxygen break.
Okay.
Janet, another thing Kenny mentioned before was also you guys were able to look for jobs through Yellow Pages, which is something now that Gen Z, I don't think we even have anymore.
No, I don't think we do either. I don't even know if they give us telephone books anymore. I haven't gotten one since I don't know when.
No, they
Yeah.
don't. It's Yelp.
Yeah, you're right. Yelp, Yahoo, all those. Google, you look up companies, you look up, yes, yeah, you're correct. That's a good generation gap issue.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn. Indeed. There's so many. And there's a lot of remote work that you can do from home.
Yes.
My job I finished up with, it was part-time, but I was working full-time. I went to school through a program called Ticket to Work, which is offered by Social Security Administration. And they paid for my schooling. And then I went to work as an administrative officer of administrative office, which is short for unit clerk. And I spent, like I said, it was part-time, but I worked a lot of extra hours.
Haley, what other questions do you have for Ken?
I have one more question for you, Kenny, and then we could just start to wrap up. My last question is, what kind of support or resources have been helpful in your pursuit of employment?
The Ticket to Work program, which I just mentioned, that's a big one that a lot of people with disabilities don't understand. And then my wife runs the
Also, the Center for Independent Living was one way to find work. I think that's how you got your training with computers too.
What is it called?
The Center for Independent Living.
And the first one, he said?
Office of Vocational Rehab.
OVR.
Which was just doing it too for listeners out there that might be not know this. Okay.
Just don't be afraid to talk to people. I know that my husband got a job talking to someone sitting at a lake.
That's what I said last week to
Yeah.
Haley. You never know who's going to be put in front of you that can
Right.
change your life
Yep.
or give you an opportunity that you might not ever have. Look at that.
And
That's wonderful.
this one was a big one because it made kayaking accessible for wheelchair users and amputees and even blind people. I'll let my wife tell you about that one. It's called Chaos.
Okay, go ahead.
We were invited to participate and assist with a class of blind and autistic children who had never experienced being on the water. And because Ken was already an experienced kayaker and was used to going on some low-level rapids, they asked him to be a group leader for one of the blind groups. And there were many, many people who volunteered, and we were volunteers, obviously, as well. He led a group of about 6 children down the Juniata River in Pennsylvania by sound. So they'd have to and it was a wild trip.
That was a life
I bet.
changer. That was really a life changer. And we had so much fun doing it. I mean, it wasn't, you would never know these people had any kind of disability at all.
And I think all these volunteer experiences that we've done have linked us to so many people who've provided opportunities, like Ken working for Board Safe Docs and assisting with, the parks, the state parks to put in accessible kayak launches.
State and federal.
He was an adaptive ability specialist. And now these docks are all over the country and all over the world. And they started with one dock in Lehigh, Pennsylvania,
Leaser Lake.
at Leaser Lake.
It became the first totally accessible park for people with all kinds of disabilities.
That's wonderful that you started that. And you get the credit for that one, Kenny. You started it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It really is. It really is. God bless.
There's a lot of seeds I have planted before my heart attack that are now still growing. That's why there's so many adaptive kayak launches starting to be throughout the United States.
That's one. Anything you want to share? Maybe you can get some volunteers if we have enough listeners. I don't know. Maybe something to help you.
It started out for veterans that come back from the war all banged up. It's great for individuals with PTSD. What else?
Well, the spinal cord support groups.
Yeah. I was chairman for spinal cord support group in Good Shepherd. That's where I did my rehab at Good Shepherd Rehab Hospital. Now I'm down in Pennsylvania.
But determination, I think, on Ken's part has kept him going and has kept him working probably all the way up through COVID. Even when he was in ICU and hooked up to a ventilator, he had his computer in front of him and was working on contracts for Board Safe Docs.
Wow.
That's true. That's what did keep him going. Determination.
Yeah.
And think of all the people that you've helped from the journey that you were on. And you were not in a wheelchair your whole life. So it had to be triple difficult for you than someone that wasn't, no matter what it is. I understand that, but to become that way is even twice as hard, I think, because you knew something else, right?
I do a lot of mentoring also for newly injured spinal cord folks.
Wonderful. Is there any way that if someone wanted to get in touch with you, you might want to say it now? Maybe they need help.
Is send me an email through joypt@hotmail.com.
Just in case someone's listening, you never know. You might help quite a few today.
Right.
Well, I think we've wrapped up. We kept you a long time.
Please send me the link to your podcast so I can share that with my groups.
Yes, we will send it.
Yes,
Haley will
of
send it to you.
course.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Kenny. It was a pleasure to have you and for you to be able to share your experiences with our listeners. Your insights are incredibly valuable. Thank you so much for all the work that you do.
Well, thank you for having me. And if there's ever any other topics you might want to discuss, just give me a holler.
Thank you, Kenny.
We definitely will. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll be back next week on Gap Perspective with Haley and Janet.